Evergreen Show, taking your business from seed to sapling to towering giant. With your hosts, best-selling author and business growth experts Noah Fleming and Sean Veltman. This is the only show that gives you proven, pragmatic, and immediately applicable business growth strategies every week in 15 minutes or less. Here's Noah and Sean.
Well, hello, everybody. We're back. This is Noah Fleming and my co-host, Mr. Sean Veltman. This is the Evergreen Show, giving you some amazing stuff in 15 minutes or less. And you know how I like to start these calls. Sean, give me the weather. What's going on today?
It's a beautiful sunny day here in my hometown of lovely Calgary, Alberta, and I am really excited. I'm warm with excitement on this winter day for our topic today.
Well, today's topic is juicy, and our listeners are going to love this one. We are talking about the most important sales skill. Did I get that right? The most important sales skill.
I think you got that right.
So why don't you tell our listeners, Sean, what is it? Is there one most important sales skill that we can give to listeners of the Evergreen Show today that they can take into their organizations and have some dramatic results and some incredible improvements by just understanding the single most important sales skill?
Yeah, I think there is. The reason this comes up is because you and I are both often asked to do sales trainings, right? Come and talk to our sales group or come and help us. We've gone through this formal sales program, but people aren't using it, or what do we do? And often we tell people that specific trainings don't really help and that process is more important, but still we get pushback sometimes. And they say, surely there has to be a skill or a few skills that you can transfer to our people quickly to help them improve. And so, you and I have talked about this a lot over the years, and we both think that there is. And I'm going to try to do my best to explain it quickly, and you can correct anything that I'm messing up in my quick summary of it. But here it is. The single most important sales skill is the ability to quickly get the person in front of you to let you know what they actually care about so that you can see whether or not you have anything that can help them get there.
I think you nailed it. I think that's great. Is there more to add to that, or is that the skill?
I think there's a lot to add to it and why it's not as simple as it sounds, but that is the skill. It's not about being able to eloquently pitch what you have. It's not about being able to control the conversation. It's not about going through your sales process. In our minds, or at least in my mind, it's about being able to quickly get the person in front of you to honestly tell you what they really care about so you can see whether or not you can help them or how you can structure something that you sell to help them most effectively.
So, that to me is the key, right? It's that simple skill, understanding that. And as you mentioned, we get a lot of requests all the time for, we need more sales training. We need more help with this. They need more help pivoting or posturing or quoting. And the reality is it all comes down to that one simple skill. How do you really understand what the customer needs and how you can deliver that? Is that a fair way for me to encapsulate what you said?
Absolutely. So I'd like to take a second here and just say, I know that this sounds really basic, and we're going to have people listening saying, Sean, Noah, you've basically just said to us that the most important skill in reading is knowing the alphabet. Who doesn't know this? And yet, so often we see that this isn't actually being done. We do role plays with salespeople, and they don't get to the heart of the matter. We go on sales calls with salespeople, and we watch them fumble around and not get to the heart of the matter. So, Noah, what can salespeople do to take this intellectual understanding and actually make it real?
Well, there's a couple things you said there which are interesting. So the pushback of, well, this is really simple. These are the fundamentals. Of course, we get that. The flip side Sean mentioned there is we see the opposite time and time again. We've seen this in billion-dollar-plus organizations that are on paper doing remarkably well. But when we start to work with these people, and I'm not singling anybody out, but we start to see that these fundamental skills are missing. They're missing in salespeople that have been on the job for 30 years. They're missing in the star new guys. Most importantly, they're missing within the corporate structure or the process defined by the sales team and the sales department and the sales manager and senior leadership. And so that's where there's this fundamental flaw in that these skills, they're not just missing, sometimes they're non-existent, or they're the practice of using these skills or that skill is it's not, I'm not sure what the right word is, but it's not happening in a rate or a way that it should be. And so these are the types of things that we need to tighten up. The fundamentals always come first.
Absolutely. It's and I think what you said there that was really interesting is that a lot of times these fundamentals aren't even represented in the processes that are set up by the company, and they're not tracked, they're not measured. And so, of course, people aren't going to do them because corporate is given a message that says these aren't important, or we expect you to do your best.
Well, it's funny because it's one of the reasons why, we've used this exercise often. I know we've talked about it, but again, we'll work with well-established sales teams and we'll first ask senior leadership and we'll say, so does the company have a sales process that you follow? And oh yeah, absolutely, right? It's fairly defined, and we have these tools and these systems, and we use Salesforce and blah 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 blah. And then we sit down with these guys and we say, okay, so what we'd like to start with today is to have everybody write out the sales process of the company and write out the steps you take in these particular situations. And one might be, what's your process for prospecting for new business? What's your process for dealing with an existing customer and selling through to them or selling some additional products or services? What's your process for follow-up post-sale? And so we'll ask these types of questions and we'll have everybody write down their answers. And then what do you think we find, Sean?
Noah, I think we find that if there's 9 different salespeople in the organization, we get 12 responses back.
That's exactly right. So we get responses that are all over the board, and there's no congruency whatsoever. And again, we've found this in some of the most established companies that we've worked with, some of these powerhouse large organizations that are just, again, kicking ass almost on, I think that's the first time I said kicking ass here on the Evergreen show, kicking ass on almost every possible level, except if they were able to tighten up in these areas and just add a little bit of structure around this and to train those single most important skills and to make sure that they were followed, make sure that they were understood, and make sure that those skills were being used and implemented, then those already kicking ass results would be that much better. They wouldn't be looking for, we need a little bit more training. We need a little bit more help. We think we're doing well. We just think we could be doing better. Yes, you could be. And here's one way to do that, right?
So absolutely. And so I want to give everyone an exercise right now, and we've talked about it before, but think about your customer avatars, sometimes called the straw men, and do the exercise of thinking about who is your customer. And you're going to have many. If you sell more than one thing, you're probably going to have more than one customer type. But break it up. And if you need to, create half a dozen different customer avatars and make sure you know them, you understand them. Why would they buy from you? That's the most important question. We hear it a lot, right? Oh, we eat our own dog food here. Oh, we sell ourselves first. The first sale is to your sales team, blah, 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 blah. But we very rarely see this actually happening. So here's the question to ask your salespeople. Why the hell would this person buy from you? Why would they buy from us? Why not our competitor? And if you can't get a solid, actionable response, you're in deep, deep trouble.
That's exactly it. So let's think here about a challenge today. And I know we're 8 minutes in here, but let's get right to the heart of the matter, because I think it's important to do that in this specific example. But what can our listeners do to either ensure that they do understand the single most important sales skill, or to ensure that that single most important sales skill is understood, being used, being implemented, and being followed with some sort of level of, rigor and constant use, I guess, is the for lack of a better word. But what do you think is a good challenge for that today? So
here's what I think. Pick the 2 things that you are the best at in your market? What are the 2 reasons that companies would buy from you over somebody else, right? What are your competitive advantages? And understand that not everybody cares about those competitive advantages. So let's say that your number 1 advantage is that you can deliver twice as fast as your closest competitor, and your second advantage is that the quality of your products is much better for the price, and so it'll last for an extra 30% of lifetime usage. My challenge to you is, how do you find out which of those 2 things are important to the person in front of you, or if either of them is important to the person in front of you? What are the questions you're asking? What are the observations you're making while you're with them? What are the tests that you're putting in front of them to help you understand which of those 2 advantages, if either, is the most important, which is going to shape the entire way that you sell for the rest of the process?
I like that. I like that a lot. So that's the challenge for today. So listen to those things, look for those things, ask yourself, are your people truly understanding this? And then again, I think I always like to take it that next step and make sure that you can build some sort of process around this to make sure that those things are happening, they're being followed through. These things that you expect to happening are actually happening. Again, we've talked about this before, right? You can't expect what you don't inspect. And so this is all the more important area to be thinking about, instead of just saying, hey, gee, I think we need some more sales training next year, right? Dig a little bit deeper. Even though we started with this fundamental response to what is the single most important sales skill, and as Sean said, we gave you something that's like reading the ABCs. You need to dig deeper instead of just saying we need a little bit more sales training, we need something else, right? Look and make sure that you've got the fundamentals first, and then decide, where do we need more support, where do we need more tools, where do we need more help, and then what can we do to actually make that happen? Anything else, Sean, that you want to add to that?
I think that's great. No, so just to recap, if you're a salesperson, make sure that you know how to find out what's important to the person in front of you. If you're a sales manager or a senior leader listening to this, make sure you know how to measure how many of your salespeople are doing this on all of their calls.
I like that. And so one of the things that you mentioned there first, in the first part of the challenge with your salesperson, is something that we covered in great detail in the new book, Dealing with Difficult Customers, where we talk about the importance of role playing, the importance of, giving this type of ongoing training, asking those questions, making sure that people understand what questions to ask when they're in front of a client. We think the art of role playing is one that has been lost, and one that is so powerful in the business world today. And so, on your sales calls with your sales team, role play with 2 salespeople. Have one play the buyer and one play the potential client or the potential customer, regardless of your business type, and see if they're able to use the right types of questions, or see if they're able to have the right discussion to really understand the customer's needs. So I think that's a little bit next part of the challenge, but anything else you want to add to that one?
No, I think that's great. We've given a lot of homework for this episode, and I think if everybody listening does it, you're going to see some incredible results, and I look forward to hearing about them.
I like that a lot. So, folks, you've got the challenge. You've got the single most important sales skill today. Make sure you actually look into this now and ask yourself, are we getting the fundamentals right? You know how to reach out to us. You can go to my website, noahfleming.com, hit the contact button. If you want to get a little bit more on this topic, obviously you can reach out to us and we can talk about ways we can help. But this is something we cover in the new book, Dealing with Difficult Customers. It's something we talk about a lot. But again, always start with the fundamentals and the basics, and then ask yourself, do we have the right tools or things in place to actually ensure that we're living up to this, we're meeting these expectations, we're doing this, we're getting this, and then move on to that next part before you invest your dollars in more very expensive, kind of useless training. So, Sean, last words from you.
Last words, advanced techniques are just the basics mastered. Get your fundamentals down and get to work.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. All right, everybody. We will talk to you next week. See you later.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us each and every week for another great episode of The Evergreen Show with your hosts, Noah Fleming and Sean Veltman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on The Evergreen Show.